Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet. Malhotra. China has been ignoring the medical infrastructure in the country ever since the pandemic hit, according to reports. Now, China is facing one of its worst surges. Epidemiologists have predicted at least 3 waves of the virus to hit the country from January. Hospitals are struggling, pharmacy shelves are stripped bare, and crematoriums are overwhelmed in the wake of the Chinese government's sudden decision to lift years of lockdowns, quarantines and mass testing. Chinese authorities have warned of successive waves of COVID infections in the coming months. As China's vaccines fail, draconian zero COVID policy has also failed. China has admitted that the scale of the outbreak has become impossible to track following the end of mandatory mass testing. It's time for China to get its act together. Until then, the world must quarantine China, stop traveling to and from China to protect China's incompetence from costing other countries and its citizens' lives. We'll talk about this and a lot more with our guest. Joining me on the show is Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, Chairman of Nephron Clinic, Padma Shri awardee. Dr. Anil Arora, gastroenterologist, also joining us on the show. Mr. Sumit Peer, political commentator, here with us as well. And last but no means the least, Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, joins us on this very important discussion as well. Dr. Bagai, I'd like to begin with you. You know, it's more or less like deja vu. Dr. Bagai, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ji.
All right, it's more like deja vu. You know, it's basically reminiscent of what exactly happened in 2020 as well. You know, this virus, this horrific virus was spreading like fire in China. They failed to inform the world. They failed to, in fact, cut off airlines. They failed to, in fact, take any precautions concerning its spread. And that kind of a scenario is emerging once again. What should India do?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I think the entire edifice of China is wrong and inaccurate, unscientific, and dictatorial policies have been based on a false narrative. It's full of lies. It has no ounce of truth at all. Even if they give a data now, it's considered as unfactual because no one believes them. The vaccines to begin with were of very poor efficacy, and with the new Omicron sublineages, which I mentioned 2 of them, which is BF.7 and the other one being BQ 1.1 and XBB, have a huge vaccine escape and an immune escape mechanism up to 165 times more than the original COVID strain. So they are left in a virtually impossible task. They don't have antivirals. They don't have on board the monoclonal antibodies. Their testing and their facilities of isolation have all gone for a toss. There's a vast population which is under-vaccinated, that also with very poor vaccines, or not vaccinated, and practically no significant percentage have been boosted. So now you come with the removal of restrictions, a population at large which is vulnerable, being exposed heavily onto the COVID surge. I dare say, like most other people worldwide are saying, there will be millions of cases and many thousands of deaths. The question is, we don't know what is the exact genomic sequencing which is happening in China because it's an opaque society. They don't want to share. They did this in 2019. They hid facts. They ruined the world in 2020 and 21. They have to be held accountable. My strong suggestion is all travel to and fro from China, at least as far as India is concerned, should be restricted. Any person having visited China for the last 4 weeks should not be allowed to enter into India, and China has to pay a price. The world let China off its hook in 2019-20. This is a chance now. You not got to make China accountable. They have to pay for the financial, psychological, medical devastation which they have done, economic devastation they have done to not one country but practically more than 200. They got to pay a price, and the price paying has to be now.
Absolutely. Good points there, Dr. Bagai. Joyita, taking a leaf out of what Dr. Bagai said, the first time China got away with this kind of a behavior, what should the world do for China to not get away the second time around? They definitely need to be cut off completely, ostracized.
Vineet, when it comes to China, you see the very fact that China has not learnt its lesson, it is pretty obvious from what is going on over there. But for the world, for the rest of the world, to expect that the rest of the world is going to take some sort of an action against China is basically okay. It's basically
good in theory.
yeah, it is theory, and it's not going to happen, because if you see what is going on in reality, what is happening in the world, when you look at Mr. Joe Biden, I mean, what he is doing is that he is basically bending over backwards to have good relations with China. He's kind of, when you look at Australia, what are they talking about? They are talking in terms of how they can strengthen relationship with China. When you look at Germany, what are they doing? I mean, it's all across the so-called white Western bloc, if I can say. Australia is part of that as well. So they are all ready to befriend China. I mean, making some noises about against China is not going to help. But what is happening when it comes to actual action on the ground? It's not happening. We are hearing about that semiconductor critical equipment, some kind of a ban, the chip ban that the US has imposed, and so that you cannot, for example, export some chips, so that China semiconductor industry is not getting, does not get any boost. But the US corporations are themselves undercutting that. I mean, so how are we going to expect that something like that, the world is going to take action against China? Look at the Tedros, Dr. Tedros, the World Health Organization Director General. What is he doing? I mean, he is literally in China's pocket. I mean, if you look at it, when it comes to international relations, we all saw at the G20, for example, how Mr. Joe Biden ran across the dais to go and shake hands with Mr. Xi Jinping, and he was smiling away to glory. Think of the statement that the Chinese had issued, and the way the statement that the Joe Biden's the White House had issued. In the Chinese statement, they had talked about the US is not going to do this to us, not going to hold us. Basically, they said that we will do exactly what we want, and the US has agreed to it. So, the world is not going to do anything. If you ask me, each country is on its own when it comes to standing up to China, and each country is on its own when it comes to handling this this virus, tackling this virus. So I do not expect the international community to do anything.
Dr. Arora, you really also cannot trust the information that is coming out of China. Whether there is a mutation of the variant that was last around in India, is there something new which can escape the vaccine that we all have administered? It's so opaque at this point in time, like it was in 2020, that we have to, for our own sake, make some semblance and sense out of this situation and block China.
Yeah, Vineet, I fully agree with the previous speakers that you can do a precious little to belligerent China. If you look at the way they have handled COVID crisis, after exporting to the whole of the world with millions of the deaths, nothing was done at home. Even if you look even at the vaccination, which was approved by WHO in May 2021, China did nothing. 6 months later, when the Indian government was approved the vaccination with Covaxin, we had inoculated about 70% of the population, and we were able to save majority of the people affected with the second so-called Omicron wave. Now, what sort of virus is emerging up in China? And China also has to roll back its zero tolerance COVID policy to save its own political seat, because there have been increasing number of the protests at home. And unless he would have taken a U-turn, it would have boiled down to something of his even being unseated from his party position. To overcome that, this is what is happening. You have bunch of the people and majority of the population in China which is not vaccinated. They are vulnerable to the infection, unlike the rest of the world where most of the developed countries, at least including India, have been able to vaccinate their individual. So you have a virus which is being exposed to the totally unvaccinated virgin naive population. So as Dr. Sanjeev said, we do not know what is the genomic sequence of this virus, which is multiple, because it is an opaque country. It does not let the people come out of it, and we do not know what sort of virus is coming out. But one thing is clear, the more the virus mutates, even though it tends to escape the vaccine efficacy, but its pathogenicity and virulence does decrease. So even if the virus lands up in India, we have to be cautious that we have to prevent the people traveling to India from China, and we have to keep using masks and try to increase our genome sequencing methodology. But then we should not be on an undue alert that is going to give us a type of crisis and devastation that had happened in the Delta wave, because most of us at that time had not been vaccinated. The fact that we had natural immunity, the fact that majority of us had two vaccination, I think we are pretty confident we may be able to avoid this problem. There is nothing you can do to this belligerent China.
Sumit Peer, the problem here is that we have to understand that China is going to continue to lie. China is going to continue to put up a picture which the world cannot trust. And we have seen that Chinese vaccine, it does not work. The Indian vaccine does work, and despite that, travel has been opened up by China for ulterior motives. What are your thoughts on where this is headed, and how can the world, including India, protect itself? When China doesn't give a damn about its own people, Sumit, how will it be concerned about what happens to the rest of the world?
Vineet, thank you very much for having me on your show. In fact, in China, you see what CCP wants you to see. You get to know what CCP wants you to know. You get to believe what CCP wants you to know. Whatever you see, that is never the truth. And what is the truth, you never see. Tell me something. There are 29,000 people which die every day in China. So last Wednesday, who died was a natural death. This Wednesday, who is dying is of COVID. The able doctors here will not agree to it. There has been a lockdown 10 months or 2 years almost with 80 to 100 crore people. There was no herd immunity, there was no vaccination. China told us, and the Wuhan Health Organization, which we call WHO incidentally, told us China has done inoculation of 300 crore people. 3 billion vaccinations done by China. And yesterday, what are we told? 30% of the adults are not vaccinated. So which number is true? Is Wuhan pool party true, or is this the video which CCP is releasing right now? Which one is it true? Now, is a nasal vaccine true, which nobody knows the name, which nobody knows the FDA has approved, or is it distilled water put in people's noses? What is true about China? What the hell is true about China? That is the bigger question. Today, Vineet, their economy is slowed down 2.7%. People say 2.1, 2.3. They are heading to a recession. The virus was unleashed to slow down the world's economy. Then they played this cat and mouse game with zero COVID. When there was a political rebellion against Z, he had to open the economy, no other option. Now he's saying the COVID is going to come and swallow the whole world. We need the truth remains, when Delta came, most of us got infected or affected by Delta, right? But Delta could do nothing in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and surrounding countries around us. It caused havoc in India. When Omicron affected the whole world, it could not do any damage in India. Our vaccination policy, our herd immunity, and all of us have contacted COVID. Some doctors have said that even every second Indian, or almost every Indian somewhere down the line, got contacted the virus, but the immunity and the vaccination helped us to overcome. Even today, we might contact the virus, but it comes and goes as a normal flu. It doesn't get us down. Because now today we are much prepared. What is worrying me is one thing, it's not the variant. They are showing this to the world so that the world is hassled, stock markets crash, the economies crash, everything crashes, and world is again able to stop, China is again able to stop the world. What is more baffling is one important incident I want to take your attention to. Just few days back, there was a big hack of data from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Now, why do Chinese hackers need a data from a AIIMS? They will take bank account, they will take credit card data, they will take the data which can be sold on the dark web. Why AIIMS data? Are they trying to re-engineer a variant which will only affect Indians like Delta did? Is a new variant that they are trying to make, because that is why the government of India is immediately responding with genome sequencing. Where did the genome sequencing come into the picture when there is no new variant known? And there's no new variant known. And let me tell you and predict you one more thing. The new variant will not come from China or India. It will emerge from somewhere else in the world and possibly come here. The biggest worry is not what the hell is happening with China. It's all their karma. Let them go and burn with it. But the problem is, are they the data steal in AIIMS was designed for a purpose? Are they engineering a special variant for India because they want to stop us at any cost? The doomsday for China's name is India. That is where the whole game is. Now, we should not go by these videos because, Vineet, what happens in China, nobody knows. I have some source-based information that millions of people have died in China because of COVID. Their official number is 5,000. Now, what do you believe? They are saying only 1 lakh people got infected, 4,000 got dead. And suddenly, after the Z's political revolt, the havoc has started broken loose. Everybody is dying because of COVID. It can't be true. Delta has a 14-day cycle and Omicron has 5. So what was happening for last months and years, which is a variant which has a cycle of 2 years? What was CCP trying to prevent? The CCP was trying to prevent economic disaster, and they are brewing an economic pandemic. We have to watch our economy and health together. Let's not get into a trap of getting panicked and only bothering about health, and they will break us and break the economy. Then the things at LAC will become easier. And in the mid of crisis, you try to pull a tawang. Imagine a country where millions are going to die, and all you on the 7th day. There was 14-day happened yesterday after they lifted this zero COVID so-called restriction. The 14th day was Tuesday. On the 7th day exactly, they tried to pull the tawang. Does this all match up? And yesterday, World Bank says their economic outlook is 2.7. S&P and Moody's and all have brought it down to 2.3. As all of this stuff has left. We need China always plays a bigger game. We have to be very cautious on all the sides. They might be playing on our psyche, but what I'm very worried is, are they trying to engineer a Y variant only for India? That is our biggest worry. That is why the government of India is asking of genome sequencing, and genome sequencing.
Absolutely. Dr. Bagai, the Union Health Minister, Mansukh Mandavia, has recommended that everybody should mask up. And that is the recommendation that has come up after, that much anticipated meeting that started at 11:30 a.m. Do you think that is the one step that should be taken, or would you recommend more?
Hi, Vineet. So, a few quick points. I think China will do what they need to do, and I doubt whether they're going to listen to common sense. And unfortunately, innocent citizens in China are dying like they have died for many decades in the past. What India needs to do is to protect itself. That's the only way to survive in this world. I think strict advisory of N95 mask, not surgical masks. I repeat, N95 masks, which gives a protection of up to 95 to 99% for ingress and outgoing infection. Not only COVID, but including influenza, RSV, and a host of other viral infections. Point number 2 is, as far as possible, don't attend very close, crowded, and very super spreader-like events, especially during Christmas and New Year's. Keep social distancing. And ventilation policies in India need to be implemented in offices, at homes, in schools, colleges, commercial complexes, malls, and so on. Point number 3, there is a very small segment of eligible population in India who've not got the third booster, thinking that the COVID is over and gone. And I think that segment of population needs to be identified. I must stress the 4th booster, that means the 4th dose, that means the 2nd booster is not required. There is not much significant gain between the 3rd and the 4th dose. So 3 doses are enough. And last, most importantly, I've said this on many shows in the last few days, travel advisory as far as China is concerned needs to be called out. And I think China at large should be called out. Let India take the lead. India is strong enough. India is brave enough. India is economically powerful. India is politically powerful now. India should take a stand to call out China and read out the Riot Act. We cannot suffer, the world cannot suffer like it did in 2019, 20 and 21.
Joyita, is this enough, just masking up when it comes to China? There might not be any direct flights at this point in time, but there are people who are traveling via Hong Kong and Singapore. They had these 2 new cases in Kerala of citizens of India who had come back from China. This needs to stop.
Well, Vineet, while we need to kind of take precautions, but at the same time, what we need to realize is that, we cannot again go back to a situation where lives and livelihoods are again going to get affected. So I don't think that we should be panicking, because there is a distinct difference between India and China. Apart from the vaccination, touch wood, which has been very effective in our case, what have the Chinese have vaccinated themselves with? That Sinopharm and Sinovac, which might as well be water.
Saline water.
Which might as well be water. And number 2, because they have been locked up for such a long time, because they have not been allowed to go out, because Xi was pursuing his mindless zero COVID policy, as a result of which what has happened is
but why the bipolar reaction from China?
No, hold on, I'll just talk about it. The thing is that as a result of what has happened is that they don't have herd immunity, they don't have immunity at all. Something that could have, we've kind of, when it happened, let's say for example, the Delta variant, when it struck us, we were not vaccinated. The large section of the population, I would say 90% of the population was not vaccinated, but I mean, it was traumatic, but we kind of got over it, got through it. And you see, ever since the third wave, the so-called third wave that came sometime in February this year earlier, you know, it was barely a ripple. So basically, I think, and you see, one advantage that we have is that we are surrounded by viruses and bacteria. I mean, it is everywhere. We live amidst them. You know, so there is one advantage of being a country like India, and if you are looking at it, what we need to do is that we need to take basic precautions, yes, but at the same time, let's not panic. Okay, let's not panic. The waves will come, the ripples will happen, and then they will go away. We Indians are constitutionally much stronger than the Chinese. Okay, I mean, they are totally unexposed. In fact, that's the case with the West as well. They are totally unexposed to the virus. I mean, but they don't have herd immunity. And when it comes to China, well, of course, you see, I mean, it is, I mean, amazing. I'm just wondering whether she also overdid it. When it comes to opening up, whether he overdid it, because, you know, from zero COVID, when people started protesting, is this Xi's way of kind of teaching his people that, see, if you do not follow my policy, this is what happens? Is this some kind of a revenge on Xi on his own people, or the Communist Party, telling them that if you do not follow this, this is going to happen? And what exactly did he do? What kind of opening up was that? I mean, did he do any gradual opening up? Did he go for 100% from everybody being cloistered inside their house, being locked up for over 2-3 years? Suddenly everything is opened up. Something must have gone wrong. I mean, it shows, it's a question of, I mean, China, the Communist Party's inability to handle a situation where it needs, you know, where anywhere it comes to tackling a mass level population.
Okay, all right. Dr. Arora, concluding thoughts, sir?
Agree with you, Vineet, that even though we have to be careful about the incoming infections, but it should certainly not ring the alarm bells. We have had enough of natural infection. A significant chunk of our population has been given 2 doses of vaccination, which has been proven to be pretty efficacious. But the time has come when we have to pull up the socks. We should continue to wear the mask, as Dr. Sanjeev very rightly said. We should be complacent in not taking the universal precaution of social isolation and trying to avoid the unnecessary social gatherings which are avoidable till the virus goes away from every other country. And then we should not be concentrating on China. This has given us a good, you know, ripple effect to strengthen our own infrastructure in terms of the vaccination, social isolation, masking. But certainly, since we have had substantial natural infection and double immunity to majority of the people, I don't think we should be ringing any alarm bells.
Sumit Peer?
Vineet, great cultural revolution and great that giant leap forward, whatever it's called. 60 million of your own people killed, dead with experiments. Chinese Communist Party is, I agree with Joyitaji, is trying to teach a lesson to the people. Look, it's my way or highway. 100% lockdown on 100% open. When they opened, they dismantled all the testing facilities. RT-PCR are not available, antivirals are not available, even paracetamol is not available. So it's a lesson which she's teaching to the world, but you're releasing the videos selectively so that people across the world are, you know, frightened, economy slow down, again a meltdown happens and China is again in the game. China is now practicing what is something called as bioterror. So it's like there's jihadis release videos of beheading. China is releasing these videos of people dying on the roads. Now, incidentally, we're in a country we have 1 million people dead. What is the guarantee who died of COVID, who did not die of COVID? They are not declaring any numbers as yet. Vineet, there's a difference between a vaccine and water. Ours are vaccines, and what they are giving is water. Incidentally, this nasal vaccine, what nasal vaccine? What is the name? Who approved it? We don't know anything about it. Now we're saying, and incidentally, they have lied about all the numbers. They have lied about all the numbers so far. We have to tread with caution. I mean, always saying BTT, ban trade and travel with China. That is the golden arrow for the world. If you want to save the world today, tomorrow, whenever, because you don't know what these bioterrorists are breeding next. It might be some other variant, some other thing. We have to strengthen our defense and make sure we don't fall into the Chinese trap. And China wants to ruin our economy. China wants to stop India at any cost. China wants to stop Prime Minister Modi at any cost. And that's why I'm telling you, at the peak of this pandemic, when countries ravaging with this devastation, why should you pull a tawang? What is the reason of pulling a tawang? understand military, economy, propaganda, and bioterror are working simultaneously. And let's not get carried away. Let's work on our differences, strengthen ourselves, do what we have to do, and not panic. That's the $1 million word. Do not panic. We are equipped enough to handle it, and together we can handle it. If we panic, then they will win. Let's not let them win, Vineet.
All right, so definitely, alarm bells have started to ring when it comes to COVID-19 and China's irresponsible behavior in the past as well. Will they change? Will the world change when it comes to dealing with China? There's a lot that is left to imagination.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.